Alright, so we have an update on the Oscar tank, and unfortunately it is not good news. I was in the hospital for a couple days and my son was out of town, and unfortunately we came back and we found him dead on the ground. He must have jumped out while we were gone, so that was really disappointing, but we're gonna make the best out of it and we're gonna redo this tank here. You see I've taken everything out of the tank besides the plants. And if you can see through the glare, our beautiful little pleco we have right here. What we're going to do is I'm going to rescape this tank using plum branches from our tree outside that I had trimmed and plant trimmings from our other tanks. And then we're going to add some convict cichlids from my 125 gallon in here. My son said that he'd like to just put some of the convict cichlids in here to watch them breed. I'm sure they'll rip up whatever plants we put in, but we're going to give it a try with some plants anyways because I got to trim the other tanks. So with that being said, we're going to get going on this tank here. I'm going to gravel vac some of that loose detritus out that was hiding underneath the plastic rock hide I had. And we'll start scaping it and we'll start trimming some plants from the other tanks. And eventually we'll get the convicts in here. As you can see, the Dueling Peaks tank has just exploded with growth. You can barely even see in there. All the duckweed has taken over. The plants are growing out the top. So we're going to trim this back today too. And we're going to take a bunch of the stem plants from in here and plant that into the rescape we're doing. If we go over here, a little update on the beta tank. He's doing really well. What we're going to do in here is probably take some of this valve from up front and we'll add that into the tank as well. We're going to be taking the convict cichlids out of this tank and put it in the tank with the Oscar, or where the Oscar was rather. And I'm going to steal some of the bigger stones I think out of here as well. Pardon the glare. So yeah, these guys right down here, they're going to be going in to that 60-gallon tank. So as you can see, it all turned out quite nicely. I took these plum branches I trimmed from the backyard and laid them in the tank. Surprisingly, they didn't try to float. And I think they accent the tank quite nicely. And the convicts are looking really happy in there. They're mostly males, but I do have some females swimming around in there. I know they're going to dig up and kind of mess everything up, but I thought it was a nice little thing to try. I've never tried using trimmings from my plum tree before, so I'm really happy with the way that turned out. Now, normally I would try to document the whole process of planting and getting the hardscape in there, but I am recovering from a problem with the old ticker, which is why I was in the hospital. But I wanted to get the scape together. I didn't want to leave an empty tank, and I wanted to give the tank new meaning after the Oscar had jumped out to his death, which was unfortunate. I recommend always using a lid with the big fish. But you can see here, now we can actually see inside our dueling scape tank, which is a nice touch. The green Cutabi rasboras are doing really well in there. Weirdly enough, some of the Anubias on the right side has kind of disintegrated, but I imagine that's because the light was completely blocking it. Then over here, we have the beautiful red betta in our kind of foresty scape with the spiderwood. This tank is doing really well. The fish is doing really well. And you can see I pulled an absolute butt ton of that Vallisneria from the front of the tank. And while I was at it, I went ahead and rescaped this 125 gallon. You can see I put in that big piece of spiderwood, which I think is really nice. And hopefully there'll be a little bit less aggression now that we have removed the convict cichlids from the equation. Again, I apologize for the glare there. Not a lot I can do. My son broke the curtain, so now we just have a big old glare. But yeah, we went ahead and turned a bad situation with the Oscar dying into a good situation with a new scape.